Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
How would Lieber handle it if we end up with Russell Wilson as the backup?
Not great.
You think he would handle it very well?
Not great. I think he'd prefer Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I don't think he would love either one of them.
Either one, but if he was forced to choose.
The Russell one would be tough.
Yeah. Would Wilson, I was about to say, would Wilson come to a place where he wasn't the starter, but he might not have at some point he might have a choice.
It's true.
Right? He may be running out of options. So right now, Steelers still looking for a QB.
They're apparently...
The Giants are still looking for a QB, correct?
Yes.
The Jets have settled on one for now, at least, in Justin Fields.
Yep.
Seattle has settled on Sam Darnold. The Raiders have settled on Geno Torretta. No, not Torretta. What's
Geno
his?
Smith.
Geno Smith. And then I guess technically Tennessee, right? The Titans are still looking, sort of, kind of. Is that right?
Is that true? I'm not sure.
I thought they were. Maybe they're half looking. I'm not sure. Anyway.
You know they have Mayonnaise guy? Your guy Will
Yeah, they got
Levis?
Manny. He's still there. There's no question about that. All right, top 5 now. Do you want to start with the free agent?
Yeah. I think we'll just
roundup?
recap it.
Okay.
We'll just recap it with the new guys because we knew about Murphy, we knew about Jones. Last night, right after free agent frenzy with Sauce and Nordo, we got the news that you want a center? Yes, please. Minnesota Vikings are signing one. Ryan Kelly from the Colts, 2 years, $18 million deal, 32 years old in May. 1 year after he missed 7 games because of neck and knee injuries. Also had 3 concussions earlier in his career. But they are counting on him to be the new center, Ryan Kelly. And I think I heard Tennessee say that in like the last 8 or 9 years, he's allowed like 10 quarterback hits. It's like a preposterously low number that you can obviously quantify now because everybody knows everything. Numbers are everything now. And Ryan Kelly, consistently in pass grades out very, very well. So Ryan Kelly is your center. His buddy, guard,
Also from the Colts.
Will Fries.
Yeah. The guy Gessling had identified ahead of the draft as the player he suggested the Vikings indeed sign.
5 years, $88 million deal.
And by the way, usually these numbers aren't quite what they appear to be.
No, but terms interesting too.
Yeah, no question.
And we'll give it for the record.
Right.
But it's 5 years, $88 million. His season last year was also cut short by injury. Missed the final 12 games of the season with a fracture of his right tibia.
Yeah, that's not good.
They think
That's a break. It breaks heel.
what's more interesting is he only had 1 season as a full-time starter. He was the backup in 2021, started 9 games in 2022, and then 2023 took over and started the entire season. He's 26 years old, so a little bit younger than Kelly. But, Dan, there's continuity there with his center.
Yeah.
They already speak the same language. So 2 interior offensive linemen. You want some interior defensive linemen?
Why not?
Yes, please. Jonathan Allen. He was in town yesterday. He's probably still in town. That was a late night one, I think. I think I woke up to this one. But the former Commanders defensive tackle has been brought in on a 3-year, $60 million contract. You want a theme?
Sure.
He suffered a torn pectoral muscle in his final season with Washington this past year, costing him 9
painful.
games. First significant
Torn
injury
pecs.
since he broke a foot as a rookie. He is 30 years old and played 73% of Washington's defensive snaps between 2018 and 2023. So he has played, for the most part, a lot in his career. Last year was the exception. And this one I got to go find. So give me a second because it's 49er guy.
Javon Hargrave?
Hargrave, yes. They're bringing him in. I don't think we know terms or
Not
have
yet.
terms
No.
for that one, but he has to be officially cut by the Niners. People say that's going to happen tomorrow, and then we dance with him.
All right, and Hargrave, is 32. And that is these ages, as we've laid them out, so is that 3 guys over 30 in the group?
Yes, because Fries is 26.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that does kind of go against I don't know if it's a stated philosophy, but the de facto philosophy of this club, which is, that's getting a little up there, long in the tooth, to invest that kind of money in players who, have been good for a while, but how much longer are they going to be good when they're on the other side of 30? And I don't know what to make of it. I mean, because you could argue those are the kinds of moves you associate with, well, we're going all in on this Aaron Rodgers guy for 1 year, and you know what? We need to take care of some other issues. We're going to do it. Bleep it. We're going for it. So there's the injury part, although I think, a couple of these injuries shouldn't be, there's no reason they have to become chronic. There's not a history of injury for most of these players. But the other part of it is, are you seeing diminishing returns? And is that the risk associated when you start signing as free agents players who are 30 or older? And these guys, in most cases, other than the guard, right?
Yes.
They are older. So now, on the other hand, before the free agency started, these guys were all, I think, pretty highly touted. They were highly rated as they're good gets wherever they go. And I'll stick with what I said earlier. I think they're upgrades, dramatic upgrades in a couple cases, over the players the Vikings had in several of those positions. And so then you say, well, maybe that's enough for us. You're going to have to pay the freight. It ain't going to be free. I don't think you go out of your way wanting to spend a bunch of money. But, all right, to get these guys, it's going to cost us because there's, I'm sure, other teams competing with you, and you have to find a way to separate yourself.
I would like to see one of those all-access videos of TCO the last couple of days, specifically last night, because Commander's guy came down late, between 8 and 9. And then I woke up this morning, you check your phone like you do, and Fries is here. Like, did Kwesi sleep there? Did he sleep at Vikings Lakes, the Omni Hotel? I'd love to see those phone calls.
Sure.
Say we're done.
Yeah.
We're wrapped up.
Yeah.
We've got it all. We've got it all cooking. Kwesi is cooking. He was definitely up early and set a very busy day for all of us. So
last year turned out to be a very successful free agency period for the Vikings. I think this comes across as even more aggressive. And as I mentioned a couple of times, when you make as your emphasis the offensive and defensive lines, I say you can never go wrong. There's no guarantees, but at least you are attempting to address issues that I absolutely think are front and center why the Vikings, as good as they were in the regular season, have not really under KOC turned themselves into a viable postseason threat. I think it starts there, getting more physical, getting more brutal, that no matter how much you like the finesse of being able to go over the top or doing this or doing that with the high-powered passing game, it's a brutal game that you have to win at the line of scrimmage. And to me, this certainly at least says we're aware of it. We're aware of that's an area where we have to change the approach and the mindset.
We took a couple of linemen from Indy. Indy is taking our backup to the backup quarterback, Daniel Jones. 1 year, $14 million contract. We talked about it yesterday. He sounded like he was deciding between here and Indy. He has taken the opportunity to probably have a more full competition with their incumbent, Anthony Richardson. So Daniel Jones got 6 to 7 weeks of the KOC reclamation tour and rehabilitation school. And now he has another $14 million.
If Jones ends up winning the job, Richardson's their young guy, right? Mm-hmm. If Jones goes in there, because they say they want to create competition. So let's say in camp he goes and wins the job.
And they were playing Flacco last year, if you remember.
They were. By the way, Flacco's available, isn't he? Or is he? I don't even know. There's your backup.
That's true. I kind of like that.
Flacco is your backup. He's still flinging it around. He'll throw a pick, but he likes to still fling it around. Or was I? Can KOC still take credit? Will he be the one credited?
Oh, yeah, he'll get some.
Or will the Colts get some of that?
Their guy, is it Steichen, their head coach?
I can't remember.
Yeah. He'll get some of it. He'll definitely get some of it. Could it be, as we transition, a schedule loss tonight for the Minnesota Wild opponent?
Ooh,
we better hope so.
For the opponent, okay.
For the opponent, because the Avs are not losing. They've won 6 in a row, including yesterday in Chicago, where they blanked your Blackhawks 3-0. Nathan McKinnon recorded his 1,000th career point. Yes, the Nathan McKinnon from such series as the second-round series, first-round series a couple of years ago, second-round series, can't remember, when he just torched the Wild. We had a win in Game 7. I'm pretty sure that was the second year of the Parisian Suter experience. They're in town tonight, having played last night. They're clear 4 points from your Minnesota Wild right now. In the final spot in the Central Division playoff standings, the Wild are just 7 points from being out of the playoffs. The Flames are 6 points behind them with the second wild card, and the Vancouver Canucks a point behind Calgary. So any points would be good points for this Wild club who have 4 games left on this homestand, I think, before they hit the road for a minute and then come back. 11 games here in the month of March. But Colorado is red hot, and I guess the only thing you can hope for is the schedule loss that they had to play last night in Chicago and then come here.
Do they in the NHL? Do they talk about schedule losses the way they do in the NBA?
Haven't heard it much.
Yeah, are we better off just trying to get in the lottery? Is this a good year to get in the NHL lottery?
I'm not sure. Do we have our first round pick?
Well, that's a good question.
I don't know.
Do we?
Probably.
I can't remember. Well, we gave up one of them. Didn't we give up one of them?
I thought we gave
up a second round pick for Jurisic.
I thought we gave up a 2.
Yeah, maybe you're right about that. In any case, yeah, it's for a long time we had that double-digit lead when it came to the playoffs, and now, as you said, it's down to 7, and you get a little bit worried because there is the potential for us to go on a long swoon. Let's be honest. That's the concern at this point.
Well, they can't score.
Because they can't score. And they still have some issues on specialties that don't give them much margin for error either. And still no word on when the big 3 are going to be back.
Lastly, it's bad news for the millennial crowd. And you're going to scold me. But Tiger Woods put out a statement today.
No, I'm not scolding you for this. It's news. You mean just making it part of the top 5?
Well, yeah, but also just that I feel bad about it. When I probably just need to close the yearbook.
Well, yeah.
Tiger Woods, greatest golfer of all time, maybe, underwent surgery today after he ruptured his left Achilles tendon while ramping up training and practices at home. He announced...
How do you rupture a tendon when all you're doing is playing that studio golf where you're barely moving?
I know.
No idea.
You didn't even really have to walk.
No.
But he said... had to have surgery, said it went smoothly, but he's back home now and plan to focus on my recovery and rehab. Thank you for all the support. I think everybody's at Sawgrass, I think, this week. It's the TPC Sawgrass, Island Green 17, the whole bit. I don't think Tiger was getting ready to play for that, but unfortunate news for those of us that had visions of Tiger at 49 years old going to Augusta and winning another green jacket about a month from now.
That dream might have died. You're right.
It's unfortunate. So he'll be there for the champion. He's 49.
49, okay.
The oldest person to ever win a major was Phil Mickelson at 50.
Yeah.
A handful of years ago. I think that was a PGA. And that was awesome. Hard to believe that my guy Tiger is going to be able to do that. And this also means that his TGL run is over. I don't know where they were. But he was the big draw for that, too, obviously.
Right.
Built for TV.
Yeah.
It's all on ESPN. They want to watch him.
Very, very popular.
Handing Charlie, his son, some chicken tenders or taking a swig of it before he goes out and putts. But anyway, no Tiger for the foreseeable future. Achilles at 49 can't be good.
No, I don't. And the surgery was successful, they said.
Minimally invasive and successful.
Yeah, what does that mean? I noticed those words, minimally invasive. Is that the nature of... I thought that was the nature of a lot of operations now. You try... but does that mean it's supposed to be not quite as serious as if it was a completely snapped Achilles? What are the distinctions?
I'm hoping that my orthopedic surgeon buddy will text me. He usually listens during the top 5 at 5. Maybe he can give me a heads up on it. But I think that's probably just wordplay.
Minimally invasive, I assume, means that the doctor can't charge as much, or not so much. Not necessarily.
I don't know if Tiger's cutting corners there. I'm not sure he's worried about his deductible.
Yeah.
Maybe
he is. I'm saying the doctor is bitter because he or she can't charge as much money. That's all. If it's minimally invasive.
Good point. I'm not sure.
All right, Faz at 5.
Sure,
that's close enough. We're guest free the rest of the way, so there'll be some more free agency conversation. We'll get into a couple of other things as well. If you have subjects you'd like us to explore the rest of the way, maybe you're on your way to the Hopkins-Wayzata rematch at Hopkins, right?
Yes.
What time does it start tonight? 7:30?
Probably 7.
7 or 7:30?
Don't take Cedar Lake on the way home. It'll be a traffic jam.
It's going to be a mess,
It'll be
is
like
it
Field
not?
of Dreams, yeah.
How big a gym is it? I don't even, is it, what does it hold? Do you know?
Probably 5.
Okay.
When you fill in around the track and everything, and they've got bleachers on the other side too. It's a good barn, as they call it.
It could be kind of fun. Any case, 64686, whatever you want to get into. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line. Please don't go away. Wild tonight on the Fan, you said. Wolves are in Denver tomorrow night. The Nuggets just did a 2-game series with Okie City, where the first game Okie City dominated, and last night Denver got it done. Responded very effectively, shot extraordinarily well, And I still think Denver's a factor. They're not as deep as they've been before, but I think they're going to have to be reckoned with in the Western Conference for sure. Couple people have questions for us that I want to try to get to here in this 15-minute block. Any thoughts on Cam Bynum leaving? Do you think we should have re-signed him? Well, obviously he was a valued guest on this program. I think what happened with Bynum is, I think from the Vikings standpoint, the price got a little too rich for his position. And what did he end up getting? Didn't he get 60
4 years,
for
60.
4 years? Yeah. So, I mean, I would have had no problem if they brought him back, but I don't know if it was required that they bring him back, particularly when the price reached there. My guess is the Vikings had a number, and good for him. He got a better number someplace else. And so he's, in this case, this is his big payoff moment. So it's difficult for him it's difficult to blame him for saying, I gotta take the best deal.
When we saw this writing on the wall all season long, right? I think they did ask him. They, just like Murphy, I think they tried to get deals done before last season. I don't know specifically where that was with Cam, but he wanted to play it out regardless. We all saw the video of him walking off US Bank Stadium the last game of the season. Wasn't that against Green Bay, I think? The second to last game, the last home game at US Bank Stadium. And someone's taping it. He's walking around. He's looking around. He's taking it all in. He knew. He talked about it with you the day after the season ended, that he didn't know what was going to happen. And he's earned his right to free agency. And if someone's going to give him $60 million, take it. That's life-changing.
Who signed him?
The Colts.
The Colts, that's what I thought. So we steal 2 offensive linemen from them. They steal a safety from us, and Joe Flacco. Somebody said Joe Flacco just signed about an hour ago with the Colts. Speaking of the Colts.
He signed back with them?
So double check that if there's anything new on that. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
Not when you signed Daniel Jones, too. You really wanted a 3-way carousel there? I guess I'd be surprised that Jones would want to go there if he's dealing with 2 others at the position, not 1. We'll double check on where Joe Flacco might be headed. Tigers' TGI season was already over. A number of people are saying his team did not make the playoffs. They were awful.
Oh.
You didn't want to acknowledge that, did you?
I'll be honest, I didn't watch. The only TGL golf I watched was when it was on in here while our show was still going on. And I'd look up after PTI or something.
A lot of times it would be on here when you were gone because Brett Blakemore loves that stuff.
Yeah, he
absolutely lives for it.
So then when you're looking over here at him, he's got his head up looking this way?
He's either watching soccer
or
he is watching what's it called? IGL golf?
No,
TGL
golf.
Golf. TGL golf. They're only
That's better than SpongeBob, which Zach Halverson was watching one time when I was hosting.
That's also true.
That was a comforting sight. I couldn't even keep his attention.
Vacant stare on his face.
Just looking up at the TV.
Yeah. They're only allowing 1,600 into the Wayzata Hopkins game, according to one source.
That seems really light.
I think so too. Now, maybe I'm sure they're sensitive to.
Yeah.
They don't want any difficulty. They don't want any trouble. Is there any chance we could get on the show between now and 6:30 one of the referees for that game? That would be so. If any of them who will be refereeing the game tonight are driving around on your way there, give us a call because I would love. I mean, you wouldn't have to name yourself. Well, no. The problem is you'd be outed because eventually people will know who's doing it.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened where you get to talk to an official before a game, especially one where there's this sort of built-in tension and concern because of previous issues between the two teams?
I don't think so. I have to imagine there was something somewhere in history where the officials had to do something before the game.
Probably true.
Or at least a director of officials.
A couple people are saying it's the Browns who signed Joe Flacco. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
He might be competing for a starting job there. So not the Colts, but that the Browns have signed.
And he's been there before, right?
Yes, he has. He's been everywhere.
That's true.
We never had him, though, right? Vikings never had him? We should have one of these times, actually.
No. So 1,600 sounds light for the Royal Center.
I thought so, too, yeah.
Somebody texted me they think it's about 3,500, that they don't let you pack the place. And obviously now every ticket gets sold beforehand. It used to be you would have to wait in line or have someone go there early and buy your ticket. Now you can get everything online, which is cool. But it also, you run the risk of if you miss the window, you can't get into the game.
Can't get in.
We saw this with the hockey tournament, too.
We are reminded that, Joker, who the Wolves will be facing off with tomorrow night in Denver, just broke history of the 30-20-20 game. Yes, we did talk about that. We did celebrate that. I think he had a paltry 8 assists last night.
Guys weren't hitting shots.
Not only it wasn't 30-20-20, I don't even think he had a triple-double last night. Yeah, unfortunately for him.
Maybe he was taking it easy to get ready for the Wolves tomorrow.
That's possible. We'll see how that goes.
Game 7 scars.
But by the way, speaking of load management, can we get mad at a team that load manages if they sit a number of their starters and they still win by 30? The Boston Celtics are resting people all of the time. The other day, they rested at least 3 starters, and they had 2 guys. Look it up. For the first time in the history of the Boston Celtics, they had 2 players score 40, and neither of them are household names. Neither of them are household names. And so that's the question. I mean, because basically, usually what we rip load management is you sit players, and you're more vulnerable to losing. But if you're rooting for the Celtics and they're so good and they're so committed to their system that they're still able to win the game, as most of the time, not only win the game, rout the opponent, how mad can you get?
You can't get that mad unless the only thing you can get mad about is, where was that game? Utah, or was that in Boston?
I can't remember.
I think it was Boston. So I guess it may, I don't know. Which way do I go with this? Because there are people that go to that game that want to see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure they're happy for Sam Hauser, who was 9 for 19 from 3 last night.
Yeah, there's a sample. Points. Yes, 33.
And I guess Jaylen Brown played, White played, Holiday played. So Tatum didn't play, Horford didn't play. I think I'm looking at the right game from last night.
Yes, I think that's right. But they've done this a couple of times, I think in just the last week, just because they can. It was Peyton Pritchard and Derek White who made history. This was last Wednesday night over Portland. They became the first Celtics teammates to score at least 40 points in the same game. Now, Derek White is a damn good player, right? We know that.
He was on the Olympic team.
Yeah, but I mean, again, not a household name team. And Peyton Pritchard, they each scored 40. And they beat a team that's actually been playing better, the Portland Trailblazers. That was at the Garden in Boston, 128 to 118. Pritchard is a hell of a story.
Yeah.
You want to just talk about a dead-eye shooter.
He made 10 threes in that game. So I'm pulling up the Sean Grandy tweet that I saw last night that you reminded me of this. A longtime Boston Celtics play-by-play guy. Used to be the play-by-play guy here. We had him on for the Kevin Garnett Appreciation Week when he went into the Hall of Fame. Right. Grandy's elite. He said last night, Sam Hauser, the 10th man in the 30-year history of TD Garden, the new Garden, to make 9 threes in a game. Okay, so 10 guys have done it in history. 9 3-pointers in a game. He's the 3rd man to do it in the last 6 days because of White and because of Pritchard.
You can't make that up.
Pritchard made 10. White made 9 in that Portland game that you mentioned. And then Hauser last night.
Didn't Hauser get 7 in one quarter?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I don't have the straight-up box score, but they shoot a lot of threes. And with those guys, you see why. They're dead eyes. Yeah,
it's like I said, it sort of flattens it. They're so good at what. And by the way, who's the big guy, the non-American who starts? Who's been hurt? Not hurt, but sick. You know what I'm talking about? He's a regular starter. His name escapes me for the Celtics, and he has been out sidelined. In his case, it's not load management. He's got some mysterious virus,
Porzingis. You're thinking of Porzingis, yeah.
And he tweeted out or sent out a statement basically saying, the doctors can't get a handle on what it is, and I'm trying to get better. It sounds a little scary, like that they can't get a handle on exactly what it is he's dealing with. So, but again, they're so deep and so committed to their system.
Committed.
And so good. And again, their system, a lot of people, I get tired of 3-pointers too. They're a committed 3-point shooting team. The Wolves have been on a ridiculous 3-point shooting tear. And some of that, and I know that PA had Finchy on today, some of that is related to how good and open these shots are, which in part goes back to the role that Julius Randle has assumed, has been raised his hand to participate in since he's come back from injury. And it wasn't like he wasn't ever passing before, but he's been obviously a lot more committed to that bit, and their numbers in that regard have been pretty unbelievable.
Well, Naz has been shooting well. He had a little bit of a slump here recently, but he's been on fire since the turn of the year. Obviously, Dante is shooting from everywhere right now. And then there's Nikhil. I mean, Nikhil, every time Nikhil shoots, I feel like it's going in right now. Yes. Alexander Walker. He's another one of those guys, and we know that Ant's been shooting more threes than almost anybody in the league and making more threes than almost anybody in the league. So you got
here's the other
4 guys.
Did you see the other key Finchy quote from today? It's very interesting. Well, I had it. I got to scroll down to find it again. And once again, I'd say pretty important. The subject was the emergence offensively of Jaden McDaniels, right?
Yep.
And here's what Finchy said to PA. With everybody coming back, I'm very determined to keep Jaden at the center of what we are doing offensively. Early on in the game, this was the Spurs game, and in quarter one, Jaden was 4 for 6 from the floor. We called his number a few more times than we would have a few months ago, just to make sure he stays in a good rhythm, stays as a serious threat. I do not want him to just kind of revert to being a 5th option.
I did hear that today.
That's smart. And then that is crucial because that's always the fear, right? And that has always been my fear. Like, okay, the other guys start coming back and everybody kind of reverts to their previous role. And you say, no. You have to take advantage of what you learned while those other injured players were out. And so you have to layer this thing in a way that if McDaniels has been a little bit more interested and motivated offensively, you keep using the levers that got him to that place, right? Because we've how many times have we said this? That if you can get something more consistent out of him offensively, and by that we mean more than just, the corner 3, where he's going to the basket and he's hitting pull-ups or he's getting dunks or whatever the case may be, then obviously this whole offense is a lot better. It's a lot more versatile. It's a lot less dependent on Anthony Edwards having to create all the time. Because we already know his value defensively, right? That's well established.
Yep.
But if you can get the kind of offense they've been getting lately or anything close to it, you have to try. And I thought it was good because Finchy kind of volunteered that part of it, that hey, we're not going to let him go back to where he was. And so, this is a guy whose number almost never got called back in the old days. And he's saying, no, we're going to start calling we're going to make sure he doesn't get lost as we bring some of these veteran players who've been hurt back into the fold.
I keep going back to the pace that they're playing with, too, because McDaniels is not a guy, when he catches it and has to kind of think about, all right, where am I going? What am I doing? How many times am I dribbling? What's my move here? I feel like the more times he dribbles, the worse off it is for the Wolves. When he's just reacting and moving and cutting and putting it on the floor a couple of times and getting to the rim, getting downhill or catching and shooting, anecdotally, I don't have any sabermetrics behind it, analytics behind it, but it just feels like he plays better. When he's playing faster, when it slows down and he's like almost Anthony Edwardsing a guy and staring him down and driving, that's when he has 6 turnovers in a game and you wonder, is he ever going to figure it out offensively? I think the upped pace has also helped him, which again goes back to how they were playing before Randall and DiVincenzo came back and how they've played since with the ball just continuing to move. I think he's been a beneficiary of that as well, just playing and not having to think about what all the different moves could be or should be.
For the record, Flacco, there are a lot of Flacco to Cleveland rumors, but nothing has happened at this point. So as far as we know, Joe Flacco is, at least for this moment, still available. You're getting ripped. Jack Nicklaus is the best golfer of all time, and it's not close. That's from long suffering.
I mean, I said possibly.
Vikings fan. Yeah, you weren't certain. You didn't make it sound like there was no discussion.
He has the most majors. That fact is indisputable.
Porzingis, was the guy who you finally figured out the name that I was looking for. Pritchard is likely to be, I believe, 6th man of the year. And Hendo writes he is a household name. Okay. I mean, he's in hardcore NBA circles. He is, and you could say he's made himself that, because if you're a 6th man of the year, number 1 candidate, then that's more than just anonymous. I guess what I'm saying is that he's a guy who's emerged, but he's not a guy that when people talk about the NBA, he's going to necessarily be at the top of the list. And like I said, man, the ultimate compliment to that whole organization is even when they quote unquote load manage, they're still killing people. They're still winning decisively. And I still think, I don't know, a lot of people like it's hard to argue. You look at the records of Cleveland and Oklahoma City, pretty impressive on both parties. But what that does do, it's a two-edged sword, because when you sort of lap the field, and especially Oklahoma City, that's what they've largely done in the West, then you better get to the conference finals, right? That's the downside of having that kind of historic regular season where you're beating everybody and especially in the case of OKC, right? We were the number 1 seed. They were the number 1 seed last year, were they not?
I was going to bring it up.
They didn't get out of the second round.
They lost to Dallas.
Right. So they're at a position now where they almost, I think, minimum have to get to the conference finals. And Cleveland, I mean, to me, it's almost the same. Now, they've emerged this year. They're a completely different team than they were a year ago. And I know a lot of people like them better than Boston.
Be careful with that.
Well, yeah. I think it's the old, you got to prove it.
For sure.
They're really good. I mean, Cleveland is deep. The other thing, you talk about load management. Cleveland's form of load management is we dominate so much
right.
that nobody plays more than 26 minutes.
We're going to beat you so badly, we'll rest in the 4th.
So there's they're just taking the entire 4th quarter off.
People wonder why Brad Stevens isn't interested in coming back to the college game. Because he's always rumored for every job, certainly Indiana. He's been rumored for that job for 10 years. Look at what he's built out there. I mean, just sliding into the executive seat after he was the coach and successful coach. He coached Tatum and Brown when they were young.
I think he's outgrown Indiana. People in Indiana don't want to hear it, just like we always want to think about Tony Dungy coming back for every job.
Well, it's not too late.
I think he's outgrown Indiana. I think he's had a night. I think he'll always be loyal. It's what he grew up in. But I think he's absolutely delighted to be in the middle of what he's in the middle. I think he's outgrown the whole Indiana situation.
He's got it just rolling, and he's got the catbird seat. He's got a great coach in Missoula. He's got great young players. I don't know what his kids' ages are, but he doesn't strike me as a guy that needs to be in the arena.
No.
You know what I mean?
No,
like some guys do. Yeah. I think we drove by, remember the big story when he was taking Butler to Final Fours was that he had that corporate job, and hated his life for 6 months in Indy. I think we drove by that corporate job on our way to a shoot around at the Big Ten tournament. Because the company reminded me, I wonder if that's where Brad Stevens was working before he decided to get into coaching. And I looked at the building, I'm like, I could see why that wouldn't appeal to someone who maybe wants a little bit more, wants to get into a gym.
Larry Mondello guy writes, do you want me to call in and pretend to be a ref for the Hopkins-Wayzata game? Maybe a ref who seems to be rather unscrupulous and have some inherent bias. It's an interesting thought. Yeah.
I just hope Wayzata, I hope the key to their locker room gets handed off to him this time so they don't have to wait for the door.
Oh, yeah.
In case, people are chasing them to their locker room.
They have to have safeguards in place this time, don't they?
Oh, of course.
Don't they?
Well, first of all, I'm sure they are limiting tickets sold.
Yeah, but it ain't 1,600. That makes no sense.
That would really surprise me. And people are saying, they only have kind of a little quasi bleacher on the other side. They've got the big bleacher on one side and then a little one that they kind of a temporary one because that's a big 5-court, 4-court complex. Do they even consider,
I guess I'm going to answer my own question here, moving a game like that to a different site? Or do you say, well, no, it's our home game. We want it. Hopkins doesn't want to give up the fact that it's in their gym.
Well, right? I think Wayzata asked to move it.
Oh, did they?
That was the rumor I heard. Back in the day, every section final game was a neutral site. It wasn't necessarily...
Oh, that's true.
It wasn't necessarily the Pavilion or Williams Arena, but...
So why is it here? Why is it there?
Well, they've changed it recently. Okay. I don't know how many years ago they did this. Coaches in the audience can text us 64686. They changed it to all home court advantages because it used to be we would even have like semifinals at a neutral site. They do back-to-back semifinals for sections at a neutral site for hockey and basketball. They might still do it on hockey because that was always a great day, like a hockey day. They used to do it at Bloomington Ice Garden. And you'd have two huge semifinal games that are you're 2 steps away from the state tournament, but any 4 of those teams could win state. There's a lot of sections like that. So I don't know why I'm guessing it's just cost is why they moved away from having to rent out like the Pavilion or Williams Arena or whatever. But especially with hockey, we're seeing these hockey games being sold out in like 90 seconds for section finals. Not every student that goes there can even get in. And I don't think that's right.
No,
I think it's cool to see the packed houses and the lines of people getting in. But at this point, there's so much demand for these tickets. I think they have to move them to bigger venues, but that's my dream, and that's Halby's dream.
Is the Aaron Rodgers dream, some would call it a nightmare, in Minnesota ending? We'll get to that now. $763 guy checks in. I am a high school basketball coach. Hopkins-Wayzata section doesn't do neutral sites because all the teams in that section are relatively close to each other. The theory is that non-neutral site creates a better atmosphere. Sections like 8, AAAA do neutral site because they have teams so far away, like Bemidji and Moorhead.
Makes sense.
Wayzata asked to move it because they did not feel safe. Hopkins created pushback because they earned the home game. Ultimately, section reps decided in favor of Hopkins. We all get to sit back and watch what unfolds tonight. Well, that would seem to add to the pressure, the obligation that the home school has in this situation, right, Hopkins? To say, if we held on to it for all the obvious reasons, despite what was being said on the other side, you better make sure you got stuff under control. Right.
And they will.
And look,
they will.
A lot of this is going to depend. What will be interesting is the coaches department, right? Because that was a big story last time around. So will they be on the straight and narrow, relatively speaking? Will they be until there's one controversial call and then all hell's going to break loose again? That's the part I guess we don't know.
I'm fascinated to see what they let the coaches get away with, and not just the head coaches.
Yeah, I agree.
The assistant coaches, who I think lit a lot of fires.
And that's, I think, another question. What is the rule of thumb these days in general about how much assistant coaches are allowed to biatch? Because, as I mentioned, I've obviously gone to many, many games that my sister has coached over the years in Illinois. And I can honestly tell you, I don't remember any assistant coaches muttering anything. And now, that's part of it is her policy, but I just sensed it's, whether it was a flat-out articulated rule or it's just sort of what has been expected and demanded over a period of time. So take away the volatility of that rivalry. On an ordinary game, is it often that assistant coaches, because to me that goes back to, that's a high school league thing where the tone should be set. Whatever the proper story is, it should be articulated, and then presumably if it's just that's the expectation and that's a line that can't be crossed, and the officials have been told, you hear from assistant coaches, you stop it immediately. You shut that down immediately and say the next word that comes from this bench that isn't from the head coach will indeed result in a technical foul, right? What do you know? I mean, you're away from high school basketball now.
I am. I think so. I don't know exactly if there is a policy. I'm guessing there isn't, and that's why things have gotten to slide a little bit. That's why I think, because once people start getting away with stuff, then they're going to take advantage of it. So I would like to think it's like what you said. I think there should be. Obviously, you're not going to shut up every assistant on every call. They're going to say 3 seconds. But in terms of the standing up, yelling at officials, like that should be the head coach and the head coach only.
Yeah, I think that's true. In fact, even at the NBA level, you don't see it a lot from assistants, right? You see it occasionally,
right?
But you don't see it all. It's like a constant flow of that stuff.
I don't see Mike and Nori standing up very often. Is he in Egan?
No, but we got confirmation on our first compensatory pick. 97 overall for Kirk Cousins, signing with the Falcons a year ago. As expected, we get pick number 97 overall for Cousins moving on to Atlanta, Georgia.
So that's between the third and the fourth round,
You
essentially?
tell me. I can't do the math anymore. Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, 32 times 2. Let's do this live.
32 times 2 is 64.
64, add another 32.
That's 96.
So there's 3 rounds. And so 97 would be right between the third and the fourth round.
Well, very well figured out.
There you go, Jeff Mace.
Right. That's nicely done.
10th grade calculus.
That's rare for us to figure something out that way.
Wait till Kwesi turns that into 2 5s.
So now, is this one of the 4 we have that we already thought of as 4?
I think
it's not like we've added a 5th. This is one that we were already counting on.
Yeah, I think so, because of how Seifert said it earlier. I've always been operating under the assumption that they have 4 picks, because that's what we've seen. But technically, they had 3 picks, and then this was their 4th. That's how Seifert laid it out in studio like an hour or so ago when he was talking about you don't want to go into the draft with a bunch of needs, and they have 3,
right.
about to be 4 draft picks when they get the Kirko pick, and now they have it. So basically a late round 3rd, early 4th round.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on if there's anything new on there as well. Aaron Rodgers, has the dream died? Depends on who you want to listen to. From a media standpoint, there are a couple of folks who've said it's already down to a 2-horse race, and the Vikings ain't one of the horses. That it's either the Giants, which makes no sense to me if you're Aaron Rodgers, or the Pittsburgh Steelers, which makes more sense. And that's it. That the Vikings are out. Seifert was in studio with us. The sources he trusts say, or have told him, that have not given him the green light to confirm that they're out. Now, that doesn't mean they're in, but he has been interested about the signals he's received from sources in that organization that he trusts. And that's part of the reason he thinks there has been some fire here. Might just be a minor brush fire. I think, like me, he would be more surprised if Rodgers is brought here than if he isn't brought here. But he is not ruling it out either. So we'll have to see. We did get a soundbite I wanted to play. Our guy Sean Salisbury, he's got a new online deal in addition to his morning show duties in Houston. I think it's called The Rumble. No, not The Rumble. It's called something else.
Unpaved on
Rumble. Yeah, Rumble is I guess the site. Unpaved is what it's called. And this is a conversation with whoever he's got on with him in which they are discussing where Aaron Rodgers is likely to end up. And pay attention as we go along to what he in particular has to say about the possibility of Rodgers ending up in Minnesota.
Where an Aaron Rodgers going to end up?
Redid his house in New York, so New York's convenient for him.
To me, it's either Pittsburgh or bust, dude, because you got Metcalf, Pickens. They run the football with Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin's teams get to the playoffs every year, so you'll have a chance. And their defense is good. I can't see him in New York right now after what happened with the Jets. It feels like it'd be too bitter. Keep the crib in New York. It's just too tough. And if you want to win, that ain't the place right now.
Can you see him following Favre's steps, as you mentioned and alluded to, and this somehow gets worked out where he ends up with Addison and Justin Jefferson in Minnesota? I mean, it's getting to be real weird right now.
It sounds like there's no friggin' way, but it sure feels like it's got a little logic to it. And I got news for you. Now, Minnesota ain't going to win 14 or 15 games, no matter who the quarterback is. But you want some players. That's a pretty damn good place to go, and they're feeling it now. And they got some good defensive players and an offensive line as well.
For you and I, though, probably the most exciting place for him to go, huh?
Oh, no doubt.
No doubt. That's Sean Salisbury. He is the quarterback whisperer. He's the guy who told us long before it was fashionable that Sam Darnold can play. That he thought Sam Darnold, the people he trusted, said he's got some ball in him. I don't think he predicted they were going to win 14 games, but he did say in the front end, long before we had any idea where Darnold was headed during the season, that he thinks he had a chance to be successful. So Salisbury gets it. That it's just a delicious story It's a seductive story. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But, the longer, to me, that this goes without confirmation on Rodgers going someplace, the longer we go without the Vikings signing another backup quarterback, the more tantalized I get about whether there are some hard conversations going on at I was about to say Winter Park, TCO Performance Center, in which we're all assuming the head coach would be the lead dog on this, saying, I can handle him. We talked about this with Seifert. He just got signed to a long-term contract extension. He's extremely well paid. He ain't getting fired no matter how bad it would go in a one-year experiment with Aaron Rodgers. And maybe he's, kind of full of himself right now. Maybe he's been into the ayahuasca a little bit. I don't know. It's possible. And as I said earlier, my theory is if you're the coach who's known as the guy who wants nothing but Ubuntu and nothing but positive feelings and doesn't believe in creative tension, and that maybe even that's a flaw, that he can't handle the big personality, what better way to put that to rest than to conquer the most obnoxious football personality in all of sports, or in all of the National Football League.
Certainly in the last decade.
In the last decade, for sure.
5 years, it's gone exponentially more obnoxious.
No doubt about that. If he can, hey, I get him to play for me, what do you say now? Yeah, I'll take on you want creative tension? Not only will I take it on, by the end of our time together, there won't be any creative tension, because I will have coached it out of the ultimate mystery, Aaron Rodgers.
It's the ultimate stress test on the culture shield.
It is. Ultimate. Yeah, you're right.
The ultimate, because you can bring in most players and say, fit into us, fit into our room. This is what we've built. Kwesi and I have been very intentional about this. But when you bring it, Aaron, there's a lot that comes with it. It would be to find out if there's any cracks in the foundation of the culture at TCO. Aaron Rodgers would be the one to find it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And if you get it done somehow, then you get the lifetime contract, and you probably get a statue in front of TCO Performance Center as well.
Man.
You can catch Martin Lawrence live at Mystic Lake. The Y'all Know What It Is tour hits the Mystic Showroom on May 2nd and May 3rd. You can visit KFAN.com, keyword contest, for your chance to win tickets to the show on May 2nd.
Final half hour of today's very controversial edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. Text line, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line is open. That is 64686. Russell Wilson is more obnoxious than Aaron Rodgers, has been submitted here as a theory. Obnoxious might be the wrong word that I use too. Difficult, petulant. What's another word that might...
High maintenance.
High maintenance for sure. In the case of A-Raj, I think all those would apply. Wilson, I think Wilson's issue seems to have more with the idea of, well, he's phony, right? That he works hard to, sort of develop the Russell Wilson brand,
the image,
and he doesn't always match it. I'm not doubting that. I'm not as offended by it. I don't think that's necessarily disruptive for a team. That's the thing.
I don't think it was disruptive last year.
No, it certainly wasn't. And I think sometimes that gets overwrought, quite frankly, as a criticism. I think it's the old deal. There's some truth to it, and then because of the way we operate, it all gets embellished and it gets exaggerated, and almost becomes a cliche that we just readily sort of, he's the phony. And some of it he's asked for, but he's also been, a very good quarterback. On the other hand, so is Aaron Rodgers in a different kind of way.
And I go back and forth on the Steelers angle for Russell, because he was good enough for Mike Tomlin, who, as you know, I don't know if there's 5 coaches in my life that I appreciate more than Mike Tomlin in the history of watching sports. Like, if you get the seal of approval from him, in my opinion, that should say a lot. So the fact that they moved on from Justin Fields when he came back healthy and won a lot of games and played pretty well.
He did.
That tells me a lot.
They faded late, but yeah.
But the fact that they're not automatically going, we're bringing him back, even though Fields now is on his way to New York, that also tells me something. So I'm kind of trying to decipher that.
Well, the interesting thing about the Steelers is if they don't somehow end up with Rodgers and they waited too long maybe to hold on to Fields, then they're one of these teams where you go, what are they left with?
Right.
I mean, maybe at that point they go back to Wilson, but it would seem like it would only be because they have no choice. They have no one else. It's the old musical chairs thing, and they're left without a chair. I don't know.
Kirk Cousins?
Maybe, I guess, although I don't know what he has left. Matt in St. Paul writes, people talk about Aaron Rodgers because he's the sports equivalent. He's the sports equivalent clickbait of Donald Trump. Congratulations on falling for it, Dan. Vikings' plans at quarterback have been obvious for about 4 years. Draft, shed salary, develop, and cross your fingers, and yet here you are talking about someone that will cost money just because it's fascinating. Well, I'm talking about it not just because it's fascinating, but because I actually think it is something to consider. I'm aware. I mean, God, I mean, I love you, Matt in St. Paul, but do you think we might have some awareness about what the plan is? But plans can change, and part of my willingness to discuss this is we've got two individuals who cover this team all the time, Seifert and Gessling. And they both say the information they've been given is that it's not outrageous to think that they're kicking the tires. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. But you can call it clickbait if you'd like, and you might be right about it. But that doesn't mean I can't have an opinion, the opinion that you might want to consider altering the master plan. And part of the reason today, in particular, I think it's become even more tempting to consider that is however they've worked out all these contracts, they've only spent, what was the number we said? In terms of the cap hit for 2025, they're at under $24 million.
Which is wild.
Now, this is before they add Javon Hargrave. So, okay, let's say it goes up another 5, whatever. The fact is, because a lot of people have said, well, this was going to become irrelevant once we find out how these contracts work, because they won't have any money left to do a 1-year splashy kind of a deal with A-Rod. But the dirty little secret is, if the numbers being reported by Gessling, and I have no reason to doubt them, are accurate, they have decided to push towards the back end the hit on a lot of these, at least several of these deals, and they're not close to exhausting what's available to them as well. 952 guy, Dan, Nathaniel Hackett was a useless dolt. Whoever else is as the AC for the Jets was equally bland. KOC has a plan, and he isn't a pushover who'd let Rodgers do what he wants to do. Opportunity is knocking. Well, that to me is one of the most fascinating questions. I admit, selfishly, I love the story of. How would KOC deal with the stubborn nature of a quarterback who believes he should be calling all the plays, right? And look, even in Green Bay, the word on the street was there was frustration.
Yeah.
With who's their current coach? LaFleur, in that regard, that there's a lot of butting of heads because it's like, hey, I've done this for a long time.
I'm Aaron Rodgers.
You look good on the sidelines. You got a nice BMI, but give me a break. And so that to me would be one of the fascinating questions: is how do you deal with the ultimate high maintenance guy, and that might fascinate a little bit the head coach, who again has a reputation as only being interested in guys who are, smile all the time and say hi in the hallways, and they're easy to deal with. And there is no such thing as, like I said earlier, creative tension with us, because we just don't allow it. But that's the challenge. And if you could somehow master this particular guy, then there's really no other challenges left for you to conquer.
Well, in KOC's play for Rodgers, if he did get some friction, if I'm KOC, kind of like when he looked at you and said, you're not getting this water in that tent.
Yes.
And he kind of looks with that KOC smile. He says, Aaron, I got Sam Darnold $55 million guaranteed.
Give me a minute.
I kept Pasternak in the league far longer than he should be.
Right.
Nick Mullins is getting 6.5 to go hang in Jacksonville for a couple of years. Daniel Jones, 1 year, $14 million, just because I shared a couple of snacks with him for the last 2 months of the season. With your talent and my brains, think about what we could do together.
Put together, yeah.
Wouldn't you want to see?
Let's just see how it goes.
You have to do, what was that thing we played from Bill Maher's show the other day, and how Zelensky should have handled Trump?
Oh, yes.
Basically said, we're creating an award just for you.
Right.
You're the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
And then it would have gone a lot smoother. That's what you do with Aaron Rodgers, is you just shower him with compliments and go, you're the best quarterback I've ever worked with, and I won a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford. Yeah. Think about what we
could make beautiful music together, Raj.
We could do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Aaron Rodgers would wreck the locker room, plus he's washed up, in my opinion. And that's, to me, that's where those things kind of work together, right? As we've talked about for days. He's always been high maintenance. The question is whether there's enough football left in him for you to hold your nose and tolerate.
Is he washed or
all
not?
the nonsense, right? That's the key. That's the crucial question, because the less productive he is, the easier it is to say, I don't need the other stuff. I don't need those other challenges. I don't need to have the clipboard thrown like it was my fault that you screwed up making the wrong read on that play. There was nothing wrong with my play call. You read it poorly, right? Or he can't make that throw anymore. The throw that he made that we go, oh my God, he just can't make, and he's too stubborn about it. Now, last year, to me, part of it was I almost felt when I was watching him, he wasn't stubborn enough. I felt like he conceded so much,
so safe,
that there were a lot of 4-yard passes that we don't necessarily associate with Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see. I'm hoping we get a resolution here fairly quickly, and I'm assuming that we will. My fear is the ultimate for me, this would be the ultimate letdown. We flirt, we play footsie with A-Raj, and we end up bringing Kirk Cousins home. Because and a lot of people might like that. Say, well, that might be perfect, actually, as another choice as the backup, and he might be ready for that now because the Atlanta situation has gone pear-shaped on him. But I just that would lack much of the excitement for me, and much of the train wreck potential would also be lost. Because I will grant, as a story, as in an unbelievable marriage that worked better than anybody could have imagined, or a marriage that ended, it was like KOC was trying to annul the marriage within 4 weeks. Either way is a hell of a story.
Well, and I'll say this because I know myself. His first pass to Justin Jefferson at training camp, and he does like a discount double check. I'd be running to the Vikings locker room store to buy a number 12 Aaron Rodgers jersey at 42 years old.
How would you not?
Because I can just see that part coming if he still has ball left.
Whatever healthy ratings we have here at this station, they would be doubled and tripled in a 2025 season in which Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback, and they get out of the box like 8-1. Can you imagine?
We wouldn't be sweating our bonuses. I know that. Show Wrap is brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
So tomorrow we've got Kevin Seifert on again. Didn't we just have Seifert today?
We did.
Oh.
I must have copied and pasted.
You probably did.
We could. Maybe there'll be an emergency Seifert.
Well, if there's an Aaron Rodgers signing, there'll be all hands on deck. It'll be Seifert. It'll be Gessling. It'll be Peter Bursich. Lieber, everybody. Seifert joined us today in studio. Good hour on Vikings conversation between 4 and 5 o'clock. Louis, as I said, Tuesday regular, joined us yesterday in studio. If you missed it, really good discussion with him. Tomorrow it's Kessler Day.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
He will join us. And it looks like Uncle Mike Conley will be Thursday. Is that correct? That's the tentative plan?
Thursday, right at the top of the show.
At the top of the show. Fair enough. Tonight is Fan on Demand night, followed by your Minnesota Wild, badly in need of a win, badly in need of a goal. This is the second game of a 7-game homestand, I think, where we've been pretty much a 500 team and lost most recently. The Avs, the opponent. So that will be going on later tonight on our flagship. The Wolves are taking on Denver tomorrow night as well. So actually, if we have Conley Thursday, it'll be the day after
yes, sir.
The big showdown First time we've been in Denver since Game 7 of the playoffs last year that catapulted us into the conference finals, correct? Where we ultimately lost, and you were there, to the Dallas Mavericks. Interesting text has come in from John Stamos, Have Mercy guy. I'm kind of more on board with Cousins' condos being redeveloped and JJ moving in with Kirk and his family. Matching PJs around the Christmas tree, people shoveling their driveway, Kirko and JJ chill. Everyone is absolutely strapped.
Well, I do think JJ is probably closer in age to Kirk's kids than he is to Kirk.
Yes.
It's probably close.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's
Wouldn't
pretty
be that
close.
far. 100%.
And he's probably got more in common with Kirk's kids than he does with Kirk.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
A couple people have also said again that their dream is Rodgers does end up here and that he becomes our weekly Vikings guest. I wouldn't hold your breath on that. I would obviously love it, but I don't think we might. He's used to a certain level of coin.
Yeah.
That I'm not sure. Now, maybe he'd go with, hey, it's the local station.
Yeah.
Let's get in on it. I lost myself in KOC's eyes, and we're all in this together. It's Ubuntu time.
Well, he did do Tuesdays with Aaron in Green Bay forever with Jason Wilde.
Oh, that's true.
I think Tauscher was on it. He did do.
You're right.
He did do a local
It was
station.
a long time ago, though.
Well, the coin is one thing. The cooperation from the interviewer is another one.
Yes.
I don't think... Because, like, McAfee doesn't understand anything Aaron Rodgers is saying.
Yeah,
so when he would get sideways, and I love McAfee, as you know, but McAfee's not going to go, whoa, hold on, what did you just say? And stop him on something.
Which I might do.
You might.
Yeah, I might. I might not.
You might.
But I might. And then we're like, then it gets pear-shaped, and then it's...
I'd actually like to see that.
Yeah.
That's like you and Pete Rose potential. That would be pretty good.
ESPN Radio Milwaukee. Vikings might have the best roster in the NFL if you carve out the quarterback spot. Interesting.
When they don't know about JJ yet.
Yeah.
Pretty soon we won't have to have that if you notation.
Epic trolling today. You have definitely gotten us all spun up about that washed up baby. Karen, get it? Coming in. Not Aaron. Karen coming in and ruining our favorite team. Your commitment is War of the Worlds level prank territory. That is an absolutely classic callback that the kids won't understand. Look it up, kids.
Now I kind of want it to happen. Go ahead.
Me too. War of the Worlds hoax. Look it up, and you'll know exactly what that texter from area code 70 what?
701 probably.
707. Where's 707?
Oh, look.
Don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
Now I kind of want it to happen just so...
People have to apologize.
Just to see how people process it. Because
no doubt.
It is Favre on steroids.
Great social experiment.
707 is California.
California, you say?
Yeah,
okay.
San Francisco Bay Area, which is where Aaron grew up, I think.
Yeah. Hard to argue with it. Here's a couple votes in favor. I'd welcome the A-Raj move. Best case scenario, KOC whispers in his ears on the way to a North title. Worst case, we get to watch Rodgers' career fizzle out every week, which would also be greatly entertaining. Yeah, that's my point. It's a great story either way, because I don't think it's a story that could land in the middle. I think it would either have to be a smashing success or a dismal failure. And I root for the story. You know, maybe that's too selfish of me. I don't know. Because I admit, I'm not going to be traumatized because I'm not a Vikings fan.
That's
it. And to that point, you're right.
Yes.
The way you will be. If they go like, I don't know, 6-11.
Right.
And by the end of the year, he's not even playing.
Right.
And it's just a disaster.
Right. And Justin Jefferson then gets bitter.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing. We haven't thought of all the negatives.
JJ might want to play with him.
He might.
Very possible. Who's to say?
So that's the thing. It's all upside for you because you're not emotionally invested. No. Professionally, we're all invested in how these teams do.
That's true.
In some ways. And it's always better when the Vikings are really good or really bad. So,
yeah.
But you don't have to live with another year of your life that the Vikings have imploded like the rest of us do.
I'm boxed there. I can't deny that.
So that's the one.
I can't deny it.
I understand your position.
So, by the way, Gopher Men Big Ten Tournament 2:30 tomorrow.
Yes.
In Indy against Northwestern, but we will not be preempted. We'll be out. Will we start at 3?
We'll start at 3.
We will do a live listen-in or two with Mike Grimm.
We'll
play our officiating game with him.
Yep.
Maybe we will review on tomorrow's show the much anticipated Hopkins-Wayzata rematch, boys basketball.
I bet it's going to be a classic.
Got to be unbelievable.
Two really
you think
good
it's a 7 o'clocker or 7:30?
I think 7. It's
Probably
usually 7.
A 7 o'clock start?
Yeah.
I was hoping to just drive over there, but I don't think
I bet you could talk your way in.
I don't know. My guess is security is going to be very, very tight. Plus, they might look at me, you're one of those jackals just who's here to see if there's trouble. Right?
Yeah,
I'd be here for the basketball and to watch the coaches.
Well, yeah, at Hopkins, usually I have to explain my affiliation with you at different places.
Yes.
Hopkins High School is the one place where it's reversed.
Yeah.
Aren't you Gaardsy's guy?
That's true. Because, you've been like their agitator forever.
Well,
so many
more
levels.
Than me, but yeah.
Yeah, Johnny, that's interesting.
He went further than I did.
Johnny did go further than you did this time, yeah. But your history goes back a number of years with them. I don't know about Johnny's history. I don't think he's dabbled in it quite to the same degree.
No, not really.
All right, so Fan on Demand followed by another key game to see if the Wild can get something going against a team that has now gotten ahead of them in the standings, right? The Avs are now ahead of us.
By 4 points.
So we'll see if we can maybe make them pay tonight. Show starts at 3 o'clock. We certainly hope you will join us then.
I'll be there.
A lot of things that are easily correctable.
I'll be there. I'll be around.
Believe.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Optimize your nutrition with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart and Protein Plus. Factor's keto meals can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.